Okay, so I wanted to do, excuse me, I wanted to do a video on these gauges that I installed. So I've got a vacuum gauge coming off my vacuum line, and this is showing me where I'm sitting for vacuum, right? And got my volts gauge. My boost gauge goes to the manifold, and vacuum's coming off turbo lines, so I know where I'm at for the amount of vacuum my turbo's receiving, my actuator. I need to know where my volts are at. And the boost is coming off the manifold, as I said. I've drilled a hole in the manifold and installed the fitting because I want to know my exact pressure at my manifold. But the problem I had with the boost gauge is it was rattling and making all kinds of noise. Sound like a rattlesnake was in here. A lot of other people have had the same problem with these high quality gauges. So I'll show you what I did. So it took me a couple days of thinking about this, right? And what I decided to do was restrict the amount of air going through the boost line, because what happens is too much air goes through the boost line and it bounces the needle and it beats up your gauge. Go down to the hardware store, excuse me, buy this thing, a rain drip. This is for watering plants, 1/4 inch barreled valve. And what you're going to do is you're going to take that needle valve and you're going to drill it. Now the fittings on the Equus gauges are, let me shut this off. So the fitting on the Equus gauges are brass, and then the lines are 1/8 inch. So what you have to do is you have to take your Equus line. This would apply to other lines. You can be creative, but on the Equus line, it's 1/8 inch rigid line. Cut it, and then you're going to get heat shrink tubing for 1/8 inch line, and you're going to cover the end, about 1/2 inch of the end of the line that you've cut, with the 1/8 inch shrink wrap. And you're going to do that on either side of the line. Okay, so there's shrink wrap underneath this shrink wrap, and then you're going to drill out the fitting on the inlet and the outlet, right, with a drill bit, and that's going to allow you to slide the line with the heat shrink wrap over it into the fitting. So the heat shrink wrap, the first layer, acts as a seal inside the nipple, and then I heat shrink the outside, so that seals it up also. And then you can adjust this needle valve to restrict the amount of air you want to go through your line, so you're not pulsing air into that gauge, and it'll stop rattling. So heads up, if you're having problems with the gauge rattling, go get one of these little needle valves for watering plants and get it hooked up. And as I described how I did it on the Equus gauge, and you should be fine. That way you can adjust your needle valve and restrict the amount of air going through. It slows your gauge down a little bit, but it's not enough to be concerned with, So hopefully that helps some people out with these noisy gauges, and yeah, there you go. Have a good night.